Behind the Kremlin walls lies a hidden empire. Shadow wealth, invisible power, and secrets they never want you to see. Golden palaces rise higher than Versailles, yachts vanish into international waters, and a flying fortress dominates the skies. His daughters live under false names, his Black Sea palace towers like a throne, and fear itself becomes law. This is no ordinary billionaire's tale. It's trillions in the shadows, vaults controlled by loyal oligarchs, and an empire built not on gold alone, but on silence, blood, and absolute power. From poverty to the throne, from KGB shadows to a global legend, Putin has engineered the ultimate fortress. Land, sea, and sky, untouchable, unseen, unstoppable. Stay until the end, because once you uncover this story, every billionaire you thought was powerful will look poor. Before the world knew him as the iron-fisted ruler of Russia, Vladimir Putin was just a boy named Volodia, born in the shadows of post-war Leningrad. His childhood was carved from hunger, cold, and silence. 3 of his siblings died before they ever reached adulthood. Food was scarce, winters were brutal, and survival itself was a daily battle. From these ashes, one thing was forged: a boy who would learn that order meant survival and power meant life. His grandfather had once cooked for Lenin and Stalin, but the Putins were no aristocrats. They were workers, trapped in the gray corridors of Soviet poverty. Yet young Volodia was different. While other children read comic books, he devoured stories about intelligence officers and spies. To him, they were not fantasy heroes, but blueprints for escape, guides on how to master fear, vanish at will, and strike when the moment was right. In 1975, his obsession became reality. The KGB recruited him. Here, in the most secretive and ruthless of institutions, Putin learned the true architecture of control. Surveillance, manipulation, psychological warfare. These weren't just lessons, they were weapons. He understood early that applause was fleeting, but fear could be eternal. Unlike leaders who rose through ballots or boardrooms, Putin emerged from the shadows. His rise after the chaotic Yeltsin era was no accident. It was the result of decades of quiet positioning, every step calculated, every alliance forged with precision. He was not climbing for recognition, he was climbing for domination. From a cramped apartment to the corridors of the Kremlin, his story was never about chance. It was about survival, obsession, and the cold, deliberate creation of a man who would turn fear itself into his greatest weapon. The man the world sees today was never simply born, he was scripted. Vladimir Putin's public image, carefully crafted, is one of the most powerful illusions of the modern age. A son of factory workers, a man of the people, rising from hardship to lead the nation. That is the story millions were told. That is the myth millions believed. But myths are not accidents. They are weapons. Putin understood early that the masses craved a hero molded from their own struggles. So he became that figure, the working-class survivor, the disciplined fighter, the humble servant of Russia. His image was sculpted with precision, each narrative sharpened like a blade, each public appearance staged like a theater performance. When he stepped into power after the Yeltsin chaos, the story was ready. A man who had risen not through privilege, but through sheer will. To Russians, it was inspiring. To the world, it was plausible. And behind that plausibility lay deniability. "He is just one of us," they whispered. Yet while that myth tightened its grip, something else was happening in silence. Luxury compounds were rising from the ground. Offshore networks were being built. Wealth, vast, immeasurable wealth, was vanishing into the fog of proxies and oligarchs. The humble narrative was the camouflage. The working-class mask gave him moral authority at home and invisibility abroad. To question his fortune was to question an illusion so deeply ingrained it seemed untouchable. Putin's greatest creation was not his wealth, nor even his power. It was the myth of himself, a carefully written script, played on the world stage, convincing enough to hide an empire in plain sight. Official estimates place Vladimir Putin's fortune between $300 and $500 billion, already enough to crown him one of the richest men on earth. But those numbers are nothing more than smoke on the surface. The truth lies deeper, in a shadow economy so vast, so hidden, some experts whisper it may stretch into the trillions. Unlike tech moguls or oil barons, Putin's fortune does not sit under his name. You will not find him on Forbes, nor in glossy magazines flaunting yachts and penthouses. His empire is designed to be invisible, a phantom web of offshore accounts, shell companies, and trusted oligarchs. Money moves like mist, impossible to hold, but unmistakable in its reach. At the core of this labyrinth lies the blurred line between Russia's national wealth and Putin's personal empire. State giants like Gazprom and Rosneft, officially pillars of the Russian economy, quietly serve as vaults of loyalty. Hundreds of billions in assets flow through them, controlled less by corporate boards than by the will of one man. His closest allies, Yuri Kovalchuk, Gennady Timchenko, Arkady Rotenberg, are not merely businessmen, they are shadows, guardians of fortunes that reflect Putin's desires more than their own. The system is deliberate, ruthless, and brilliantly disguised. Luxury yachts worth over $1 billion appear on paper under obscure entities. Palaces are registered through layers of holding firms in Cyprus or the Virgin Islands. Jets and estates vanish into offshore fog. And yet, every security detail, every staff roster, every guarded gate betrays the same truth. Control flows back to Putin. This is not wealth in the traditional sense. It is a financial empire as sprawling as a nation, fortified by secrecy, loyalty, and fear. A fortune untouchable, unseen, and perhaps unmatched in human history. If ordinary billionaires collect mansions, Putin collects symbols of power, palaces, yachts, and jets so extraordinary they seem torn from myth. Each asset is not just luxury, it is theater, camouflage, and a declaration of dominance. Perched on the cliffs of the Black Sea stands the infamous Putin's Palace, a fortress so vast it dwarfs Versailles. Costing over $1.3 billion, it boasts marble staircases, gold chandeliers, underground tunnels, and even a private ice rink. Wine caves filled with million-dollar vintages, fresco-painted ceilings, and a Turkish spa fit not for a president, but for a monarch. Officially, it belongs to no one. Unofficially, every guard, every staff member, every locked gate whispers the same name, Putin. Then comes the Shahrazad, a $1.5 billion superyacht, nearly 460 feet of floating opulence. With helipads, bulletproof glass, an anti-drone system, and diamond-encrusted fittings, it is less a yacht and more a mobile fortress. Satellite trackers show it disappearing for months at a time, its location masked by legal loopholes and signal jammers. On paper, it is owned by obscure companies. In reality, it sails only for one man. And above the clouds, Putin commands his sky throne. The Ilyushin IL-96, a $70 million presidential jet transformed into a flying fortress. Its interiors glitter with gold, while beneath the velvet seats lie missile jamming systems and encrypted war rooms. To the outside world, it looks like an ordinary state plane. In truth, it is Air Force One's darker twin, traveling with decoys, flying untraceable paths, and cloaked in secrecy. These are not toys of a billionaire. They are symbols, crafted to intimidate, to impress, and to remind the world. Putin does not simply possess wealth, he possesses the architecture of power itself. In the shadows of the Kremlin, away from cameras and official biographies, live two women who carry the keys to Putin's invisible empire. His daughters, Maria Vorontsova and Katerina Tikhanova. To the public, they do not exist. No official photographs, no acknowledgments, no trace in state records. Yet their lives glitter with wealth and influence that rival modern royalty. Maria, the elder, wears the mask of a pediatric endocrinologist. But behind the white coat lies a network of billion-dollar ventures. She is linked to Nomeco, a private medical firm with state-backed contracts worth hundreds of millions. Her reported marriage to Dutch businessman Jorrit Fossen, tied to Gazprom affiliates, gave Putin a silent bridge into European markets. Luxury chalets in Switzerland, private jets, and estates once reserved for Soviet elites became part of her world, all under a veil of secrecy. Katerina, the younger, plays a different role. To the world, she is a scientist and acrobatic rock and roll dancer. But beneath the stage lights, she manages Innopractica, a research conglomerate often described as Russia's own Silicon Valley. Her ventures, fueled by Kremlin funds, span tech startups, real estate, and academic programs. Her marriage to Kirill Shamalov, once Russia's youngest billionaire, brought assets valued at nearly $2 billion, including a stake in petrochemical giant Sibur. The divorce, as discreet as her lifestyle, only deepened the fog of wealth transfer. Together, they are not passive heiresses, they are conduits. Their offshore footprints trace through Panama and Paradise Papers, revealing trusts, properties in Monaco, bank accounts in Switzerland. They are the hidden princesses of an empire that doesn't officially exist. If you want to find Putin's fortune, do not follow his name. Follow theirs. Behind every throne lies not marble, but men. For Vladimir Putin, that wall of flesh and silence is called the Musketeers, an elite unit of the Federal Protective Service, trained to be shadows more impenetrable than stone. They are not bodyguards. They are extensions of his will, guardians of a regime where betrayal is anticipated and crushed before it even breathes. Becoming a musketeer is not a career. It is a cult. Candidates run 10 kilometers under heavy combat load, disarm opponents in seconds, and memorize intelligence reports while deprived of sleep. Only a fraction survive, and those who do surrender more than loyalty. They surrender their identities. Their allegiance is not to Russia, not to its constitution, but to Putin alone. These men melt into hotels as waiters, pose as aides, and embed themselves in every environment he enters. Their suits are Kevlar reinforced, their earpieces biometric, their weapons modified to leave no trace. You rarely see them in photos, but catch them reflected in the glass behind him, a silent warning that power is never unguarded. But protection is only one face of fear. The other is erasure. Journalists who question too much, like Anna Politkovskaya, end up dead in apartment lobbies. Opposition leaders like Alexei Navalny are poisoned mid-flight with nerve agents banned under international law. Oligarchs who defy him fall from balconies or vanish during audits. Coincidence or regulation enforced by fear? This is how wealth survives untouched. It is not locked in vaults but wrapped in terror. Silence becomes currency. Obedience becomes oxygen. In Putin's Russia, fear is not a byproduct. It is the operating system. In a world obsessed with billionaires, yachts, and Forbes lists, Vladimir Putin plays in a league no one dares to measure. His life is not about wealth in the traditional sense. It is about control. Control so absolute that palaces, jets, and yachts are not possessions, but instruments of fear, loyalty, and survival. The oligarchs know the rules. Loyalty grants them villas in Italy, bank vaults in Switzerland, fortunes beyond imagination. Defiance erases them, from headlines, from history, from life itself. This is not capitalism, nor monarchy. It is something darker, a regime where silence is currency, secrecy is loyalty, and fear is the most powerful insurance policy ever written. Every symbol of luxury, an $800 toilet brush, a $1 billion yacht, a jet cloaked in decoys, is not indulgence. It is a reminder. It says, I decide who thrives, who falls, who breathes. His wealth cannot be counted because it is not stored in accounts, but in obedience. It flows not through banks, but through lives. Putin has built something more than an empire of gold. He has built an empire of shadows, fortified not by law, but by terror. He does not simply live like a king. He rules like a monarch whose power is both invisible and inescapable. So when the world asks, how rich is Putin? The answer is not billions or trillions. The answer is simpler and far more terrifying. He is as rich as the silence he commands, as powerful as the fear he inspires, and as untouchable as the shadows he hides within.